You remember like as a kid when like nobody could tell you anything and you were just like, I can be the president of the United States or I can fly, and then you just had this like naivete of like, I can do whatever I want. So like that's in all of us deep down, but just like society and the world and sometimes our families and everything kind of like, you know, really bury that under expectations. So I have found for myself and then the people that I interact with, like if we can just uncover that version of you that used to just be like, I can do anything. Like, and if I don't, like, okay, and I move on with my life. Yeah. That's really like an antidote.
I was looking you up. I was stalking you, Dr. Tyler.
Just doing your research. Well prepared.
Doing some research. And I was like, God dang, what haven't you done? Welcome to episode 3 of Between Two Canvases. And now, I have the great pleasure of introducing today's guest on Between Two Canvases. She has a PhD in counselor education and supervision. She's board certified, EMDR trained, has extensive published research with over a decade of both educational and clinical mental health practice, where she has helped hundreds of people develop love and resilience for themselves. She's currently a professor and program director of human development counseling at Vanderbilt University, writer, podcaster, dedicated partner, mother, daughter, and my former professor, Dr. Jessica Tyler.
Woo! Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being
bio.
Here. Thank you. I mean, great life, you know? I mean, like, you've done so many things. It's such a pleasure to have you. It's so good to see you again.
I know. Can you believe it's been that long since you graduated? Almost a year?
Man.
Time flies.
It does. It really does. Oh my goodness. Well, here we are. Here we are. There's nothing left to do but to do it. We actually already have our paint ready, but the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab this big crayon looking thing. Okay, and we're gonna do a little therapeutic assignment. You might be familiar with this one somewhere, but what we're gonna do, stand here, think of how your day has been, maybe your last 24 hours, everything that's led you here to this moment today. And together, we're gonna close our eyes, embody that through our hand, through this marker, and put it onto the canvas for about 30 seconds. We're gonna close our eyes and just move the pen about the canvas. Okay. All right, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, let's go. Let's go for a few more seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Woo! Okay. I see you peeking. Okay. So, real quick, tell me what you see in front of you. Tell me what feelings were coming up and how that manifested itself there.
So it's a busy time of work, and so I feel the ups and the downs of that. So what I see is a lot of waves, which to me is just kind of that like riding the wave, that sometimes things are pretty chill, but every so often you got to ride the intensity of it. And I think in our job, that's something that's pretty common. Like, we just learn to be professional surfers, so to speak, of emotions.
Yeah.
I made that one up.
Hey, it's a good one. I'm stealing that. Professional surfers. Therapists, we like to make analogy of things, but I love that, riding the wave, and definitely I can feel that in work and in life. Thank you for explaining that, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. Mine's kind of curly and lots of just lines going everywhere, splattered about. but I'm interested to see what it turns into. It almost looks like a woman's face here, so we'll see where it goes.
Can't wait to see how that represents how your day's been going, your week, right?
Yeah. And this conversation, I've found out that as we talk, kind of it influences what I and maybe even the other guests kind of end up putting on the canvas. Who knows? But
let's do it.
All right, nothing left to do but to do it. Like, let's feel free to grab whatever color, whatever paintbrush, water. We got what you need here.
Okay, let's just go for it. Not overthink it, right?
Right.
But that's hard with what we do. Like, it's easy to just constantly go into that overthinking and the different angles. So sometimes I have to challenge myself not to constantly be in that mental space.
Yeah. We were talking about colors. We're starting off with a blank canvas. What color has been influencing your life, impacting your life the most lately?
Ooh, let's see. Probably I'd say red and green. Green tends to be an important color in my life. Green is a grounding color for me. If when I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed or feeling kind of uncertain, I don't know if it's just that connection with like nature that green brings, that's always, whatever shade it is, that definitely seems to be something that always kind of like reconnects and grounds me. Yeah. Particularly during busy times.
Wow, that's beautiful. Is there any items or objects or things you see that are that you have even that are green that kind of help you out in that way?
Interesting. Do I have any items?
Ooh.
I don't know if I have any items for it. I really think it might just be that connection with nature that always just kind of reminds me there's something bigger and something else going on that whenever is in that present moment. So I think more just kind of makes me feel small in a good way.
Yeah.
Kind of like that reminder that what I'm worried about or focus on isn't the biggest thing that's happening in the world right now.
I love that. It makes me feel small. It's good to feel small sometimes, right?
It's
kind of humbling.
To feel small sometimes. I think blue maybe would be like my second color, but in that same way though, of like sky expands, that like I love feeling small and just kind of being reminded you're only one piece of whatever bigger is kind of going on there.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, like, you're so impactful to the therapy community. You're surrounded by a lot of people all the time. How do you feel like that's helped you like grow and develop like recently in your life, just being around so many therapists and in that sort of space?
I think it's really humbling because being around so many just inquisitive people, creative people who really want to help, especially in times where it doesn't always feel like everyone's on the same page or everyone kind of sees the world the same way. I think I'm constantly humbled in a really great way of like, look at all these people doing the work though. So I think that way. And I think it's also just taught me so much about just like flexibility too, that I might feel really sure about something. Then you just have like a conversation and you realize like, wow, my whole perspective has changed. And so I think as a person, being in this kind of industry just always helps me to be like, but what is truth? Like at any moment, something that can feel so true to me, I can totally have my mind changed in a short period of time. And I don't want to say it in the way of like flakiness, but just this idea of like, oh, you realize like it's more expansive. Like I feel very expanded by kind of just being in our career and being around other people who just have so many different perspectives on things.
Yeah, I love the way you put that too. And it probably says something about like both who you are and the people you're around, that you're willing to be open, you're willing to like be expanded, if you will, by what's around you. And also you're probably surrounded by some amazing people who they have real belief and they have real insight into what they do, and that can be like compelling. You know, I'm in the program with you and stuff, just like being surrounded by amazing people constantly, and it just really helps you grow.
Doesn't it? It just feels like you're surrounded by a bunch of expanders, where it's just like helps to kind of build this tapestry of the perspective that I thought I had. And I think that just growing up in a more kind of like black or white environment, I think that's where I've seen so much more transformation of like, yeah, but there's so many different ways that this could kind of go about. And so that's just been really, I don't know, freeing and stimulating to me. Probably why I've been doing it as long as I have.
Where does your typical day and creative expression intersect?
Oh gosh, creative expression. That's tough because I feel like so much of what I do day to day is very like cerebral. And so I guess creativity might be in the cognitive realm, that I spend a lot of time trying to find creative solutions for students or for clients on how we can get to where we need to go.
Yeah.
So mine probably doesn't look as like, you know, direct as this, but then that means my playtime, I really like to make sure I have a lot of like freedom and there's more of that playfulness and it's not so cerebral, because so much of my day-to-day on the work week is really just like logical and very like, these are the ways that, you know, the world operates versus the freedom outside of work.
Yeah, you gotta have the work-play balance.
I think that's really important, that life's too serious to be so serious all the time kind of thing.
Life's too serious to be so serious. I love that.
Yes, well, especially in trauma world where I spend a lot of my time too, that if you kind of stay in that dark and twisty for too long, which is kind of funny because what I'm painting right now looks dark and twisty, then I think it's harder to kind of like still bring the hope and still kind of show up for the people you need to show up for professionally and personally. So having that creative play then is really, I don't know, just kind of rejuvenating.
Yeah, rejuvenating. It's freeing to really authentically just do things and not have a rhyme or reason and just kind of, yeah.
Exactly. Just having like the freedom behind it, or sort of like that liberation piece where it's not based on like rules and policies and regulations and ethics and all this stuff that is important for society to function, but getting a reprieve from that every so often to just be or play and explore.
So, you know, moving not really into play, but, you know, I was doing your bio, saying your bio, and I'm going through, you know, your website and kind of like just, I was looking you up, I was stalking you, Dr. Tyler.
Just doing your research, well
doing
prepared.
some research, and I was like, God dang, what haven't you done, right? And so you've done a lifetime's worth of work, and you're still so young and seemingly hungry. Where does your drive come from?
Oh, wow, good question. I would say early on, probably because I was supposed to. So I think just coming from like expectations. But then once I found what energized me, like what nourished me in life, and it really is like trying to have everyone who's in my space feel as safe as they can be in a world that doesn't feel safe a lot of times. That's now what's become my drive. So as a professor, as a supervisor, as a therapist, as a parent and a partner, it's that everywhere else can feel so uncertain, and I just never want people to feel that way around me. So that's been a lot of my drive. So when you look at the things that I've done and researched, I think the best way I can summarize it now is like, I spent the first part of my career trying to understand what like suffering looked like for people. Like, what are the things that make people feel unsafe? What are the ways that people have been harmed? And now I'm trying to focus on like, okay, and what's that overcoming of it? And I keep finding, AJ, like I keep asking the question and having the conversations and doing the research. I feel like belonging is such a big part of that. And so I think that's the drive I have now of like any space I go to, how can I kind of cultivate a sense of belonging, even if it's in this interaction we have, or if I'm, you know, somewhere and I'm sharing a beverage with someone, or just in class, like how can we just have a moment of like connection and belonging? Because I feel like that goes a long way to kind of like expand healing in the world.
Absolutely. There's belonging. That's first of all a beautiful word, and I do want to say that your work has not gone unnoticed, and you've definitely like put your mark onto the world. And as you're saying, you're continuing to do that for other people, and that drive isn't just for no reason. Like you have a lot of people, you know, maybe counting on you, but another piece of belonging is like safety.
Yep.
What's, for those like listening here, those who don't know, like what's the difference? Where's the overlap between belonging, safety?
Yeah. So when I think of safety, I think about like having someone in front of me who just feels, and whether it's a client or just a personal relationship, someone who feels like I am trying to understand or trying to kind of like meet them where they are, that it's not coming from this place of like, you know, Jessica has an expectation of me, or like, here's what I'm supposed to do. Because I've really seen like the harm that can come from people feeling like I'm supposed to do all these things and I'm obligated, and what happens if I don't, and am I going to be rejected? And so I think it's really just like meeting people where they are and trying to pull out, and this is what I found in my career, I can pull out a lot more of like your potential and the best part of you if I can just kind of put you at ease and like let you be your authentic self. And in certain capacities, like as a student, I do need to kind of steer you a certain way because of course there's standards and all that. But I found that to be much better than this like authoritarian way that my professional role could give me. Yeah. So it's really, and personally, just like, how can you feel heard and seen that in our interaction? Like, okay, like she got me. Like even if she hasn't been through it, like she got me, or at least I could tell she was trying to. And so it isn't really hard. It's just like being there, listening, and just trying to be able to see the world from different perspectives instead of trying to convince someone to come to my perspective. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do. Like they feel like they have to be right in a situation versus like, no, it's just a different way of seeing things.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so inviting. And like the beautiful part about that is I know from it being your student that you're not just blowing smoke right now. You're not just like saying that just to say it. I mean, I can't talk for other people, but in my experience, it never felt like anyone felt unsafe or even like they didn't belong in the space that you're in because you did. It was very apparent you were attempting to listen. And I think there is like something to be said about people who do put in that extra effort to listen, even without therapy. I remember just like a personal anecdote. It was when all the riots were going on for George Floyd. It was a white friend of mine, and I was at like a little barbecue with his dad, and he asked me how I felt about what's going on. But he genuinely, when he asked, and I know we didn't share like a political perspective, but when he asked and when I talked and the way he was listening, it was coming from such curiosity, such like genuine, like I want to know what you have to say, not I'm waiting for you to say something so I have an answer.
For my turn to talk.
Exactly. And that just felt so, even though we didn't agree, didn't have the same perspective, the fact that he allowed me that space, it was like I forever looked at him a different way because of that simple conversation. I was like, I really appreciate that. So
right there, like that impact that like he probably didn't have any solutions for you that was going to make you feel better about the actual issue you were talking about, but just this genuine interest and then that space to let you express it. Man, how powerful that was.
It was amazing. And yeah, just, I don't know why it just makes me instantly grateful that like you're here today, and I appreciate sharing that story with you. I would have never thought of that had you not, been here or shared what you've had to share.
Well, and I think it also is what helps, selfishly, it also helps me have hope in the world, because I feel like if I do that, then maybe like you'll have a better day, and then you'll extend something like that to another person, and it's this ripple effect, versus if I think about where the world is and okay, I only have so many hours a day to see clients and train so many students, I think it's easy to feel kind of like you're going underwater and it's like there's too much need. But at least if I know like, okay, but every encounter, I know that I attempted, and I know I'm not successful every time, like people are going through their own stuff, but that it's like, I know if I tried in every encounter to just like make you feel the safest you could, like, okay, I feel like I'm doing my little part as well as everybody else. So like, maybe we're still gonna be okay, even if things feel on fire constantly and literally.
Even the way you said that, like maybe things are gonna be okay, just such genuine like hope and like, well, we'll see,
Yeah.
Wow.
I have hope, but I also try not to delude myself that I know that there's a lot of issues at hand. And I'm teaching the crisis and trauma class now, so that's been an ongoing conversation of like, how do you keep hope when there's just so much darkness, it seems like, in the world? And then as a leader, how do you hold that for the people that maybe do look to you for that mentorship? Because I can't just do it on my own. Like I got to make sure that there's, fresh blood that's coming in also kind of joining the battle with me.
Yeah, I love that. And not to say that there aren't people trying every day and their efforts to create change in the world, like the lack of result is what stops them from having hope. But there's also the flip side where I think a lot of people have the expectation that hope and motivation comes first, and then you get to use that and do all the good things.
Such a good point.
But I think in life, and even making this show and just me getting older, and I'd like to hear your attest too, but hope definitely comes after I do the things. Motivation definitely comes after. I just do it clueless and dumb, and then
you just show up, and then on the other side of it, you learn a lesson.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think you're speaking to something really important, though, and this might make me start aging me, though, this like generational thing. I think sometimes you just have to show up and do it. And I think sometimes that might be a challenge for other people when it's like, okay, but like, what is going to be that drive? And I'm like, you just kind of have to show up even on the days that you're tired, you don't want to do it, you don't know if there's a point in doing it, like you just keep showing up and you chip away at it. And so I think kind of like what motivates me too is I don't expect any immediate results. I'm just kind of like here for how long I'm here, and I just want to know that at the end of whatever this is going to look like I'll be like, I really gave it my best shot every day I showed up. And I also have certain privileges that make that easier to be able to do. But yeah, sometimes you just gotta show up and just be like, I might be faking it right now, but I'm gonna still try my best.
I love that. I love what it made me think of. You know, you talk about a generational difference, but like social media, the interesting thing about social media, I didn't realize it till you said that right then, but it's like, if I go on social media and I scroll and I see all these things people have done, that's the result. Yep. So it's like my generation, we grow up on looking at other people's outcome versus looking at other people's like what it took to do all these little steps up to the outcome. Yep. And so people are expecting like a bouquet of flowers or like a bundle of fruit from a seed that they haven't even planted yet. That's a bar, I can't lie. But,
yeah, that was so good. I was just thinking like, wow.
It's, but yeah, I mean, I feel that in my generation. I really do. Like these, I'm like, just with this, I just was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do it. Like,
I'm just going to start. Because if I wait until it's like perfect or it's exactly how I might, like who knows what I miss then versus if I just kind of go and let it unfold. And I think, you know, there's this like culture of like, you got to grind. And I get that like that can be really toxic too. I think it's more of just like every day just make the best decisions that you can. Like what's the next best decision? And so every day I make the decision of like, I'm going to keep showing up and doing this work. 'Cause I think it's important. Even if there's days that I really wonder or there's weeks that I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just going to keep showing up because I think it's a cumulative effort. And then when I look back, maybe then I can see like, okay, here were the outcomes. And even if there's not outcomes, I mean, there could be worse ways to spend life than try to make people feel better.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong at failing at something that is a great idea or a great intention. Yeah. You know, like that's a good thing. That's a good failure, you know?
Yeah, or that just brings a sense of like meaning too of, you know, there's a lot that I could be doing, but being able to kind of try it every day to just make it a little bit easier on somebody or encourage them a little bit way or make them think about things a different way. Like, all right, that sounds good to me. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, hell yeah. And you're doing it and I'm so grateful you're doing it. It's so cool to know someone like you, that's part of it, but also just you are in this field, you know, like it's fantastic. Speaking to what we're doing in this moment, talk to me about what thoughts you've been having about your art that you're making right now. Any doubts or any, just what you've been feeling throughout this process.
It's interesting. So I am a recovering perfectionist. So art actually makes me uncomfortable because I can't guarantee that, you know, despite my best efforts, it's going to look okay. So I've been trying to challenge of like, that's not what I thought it would look like. And we're going to go with it. So kind of helping to deprogram some of those perfectionistic tendencies that used to really rule my day to day.
Yeah, and it's hard.
Right?
Like, it is tough. I appreciate you like calling it out and naming it right here.
On camera for everyone to see.
No, you know, the point of this is to inspire people to not be perfect.
Awesome.
You know, is to show people that like, we gotta release this idea that there is a perfect version of this. And when I did the first episode with Sean, I'm sitting there and I'm painting and I'm trying to like talk to Sean and then the thoughts that came up in my brain of like, I'm an artist. This is supposed to look so good.
Oh no.
You know, this is what I do. There's someone out there who's gonna hate on me, but like, I don't want them watching this if that's what their whole conclusion is from watching.
What a good reframe, AJ. Look at that. Because that could have been like paralyzing and totally taking you out of the moment of the talk.
Yeah, and just for that, I'm gonna splotch some red paint on there.
You're gonna free yourself.
You gotta free yourself sometimes. But
it's easier said than done though, especially I think as like professionals and people who like want to have these, you know, really concrete reputations to just be like, nah, sometimes we just got to let it be however messy it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we mull over these things in our head that bother us, we grab all the good things, you know, we take in all the good stuff, but then all this leftover junk that we need to talk about and vent about and release. And it's really it's the waste, you know, and it's sometimes it's going to come out ugly. Sometimes it's going to be imperfect. And sometimes that's what art is. Like, I've created and expressed things on campus that I viscerally don't like. And it's like, well, guess what? Maybe that's what I was supposed to get out of me.
What needed to come out and communicate.
Yeah.
I love that, because that in a way then is this like beautiful self-acceptance and self-compassion of like, I don't know that I like what just came out, but it needed to, and I still give it space to do that. So it's almost your own way of creating safety for yourself that like, and it's still gonna be good enough.
And it is.
You're doing your own self-therapy and self-work.
We're trying, right?
I mean, it's
We're
a daily
trying.
process. It's a daily process. We got all these shadow versions of ourselves that get activated by the world. And so I feel like even as therapists, that's something that we are challenged by. Like, we are not above the challenge and suffering of what's going on in the world and just being a human a lot of times.
You're preaching. You're in a good way, you know. I was thinking about something, and I had this question, you know, for you.
Okay.
Thinking about my time as your student.
Yeah.
It was terrible. No, I'm kidding.
It was not terrible.
It was wonderful. It was amazing. Had nothing to do with the question I had.
No.
I'm just messing with you. You've always seemed to have a lot of both scientific and non-scientific curiosity. You know, you always seem to like ask questions and just genuinely look at like Sean and I and like wonder, not even be like, what are you guys doing? But like genuinely like, what? Like,
yeah,
what
like,
is that? Yeah. And has that been something you've always had? Or is that something you've like cultivated over time? Like, is it?
Okay, good observation skills. People don't always notice that. That's more insider knowledge. So yes, the people who are close to me know that I am a big observer, and that I think is more rooted. I spent a lot of time in childhood just kind of being really confused. Like, honestly, and part of that, I mean, I didn't have the internet, and so, you know, there's a lot of questions I had of just, if I see this, but what about this, and what about this perspective? And so I think for me, the questions is what alleviates maybe some of my like existential dread and anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's going on with that? And I doesn't have to have a judgment behind it or a critique. I just need to kind of like understand it and like name it and acknowledge it. And so that's also where I think reading has been really therapeutic for me, that it just gives me these different frameworks and templates to kind of understand different people's perspectives. And for me, that brings me a lot of peace to just be like, okay, like I got a template for that. That makes sense. Or like, yeah, AJ, like, I don't know what's going on. Okay, I've got a template. So some of it is just kind of like my own coping, but it's also my way of connecting. Because if I can understand, well, then now I know how to connect with you in the future.
Yeah.
And that to me is really important.
Wow. Yeah, and I that definitely resonates through the experience of it on the other side of you're making your way through the world. You know, you're like making sense of what's going on. Okay, let me understand this, and alleviating confusion in the healthiest way possible.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people, whether it's a choice or not, but they make their way out of confusion or through confusion, or stick to the things that only make sense.
Yeah.
And just, I think it speaks on something we talked about earlier, your ability to constantly be open and expand to ideas and take them in and allow them an opportunity to either change you or, you know, fit in the box of, I'm gonna think about this later.
Yeah, and I'm gonna also like store it as a potential template, because maybe that doesn't feel like it resonates right now in this situation, but it could in the future. And so I think I take insight from everyone as just kind of like a gift. If I'm like picturing that I'm this traveler and I'm on this path and I'm kind of meeting you all along the way of whatever is supposed to happen on the other end of it, that it's like, I don't know, like this is a side quest that I'm taking, and like what am I going to learn and grow from AJ on this side quest and on the side quest that I might have with somebody else. So I think I take it as an opportunity, but I think that goes back to curiosity. Like I never come with certainty, because that's where I think we can have more division. If I'm coming into a space and feel like I have to be certain about things versus like, I don't know, how do you see it? And interesting how that informs how I might see things. And then there's lasting impacts. Like I still talk about that story of you in internship giving me permission to not be perfect as a professor, and that you were going to find more value in hearing how I failed. Do you remember saying this in class?
I do.
I still tell that story about how like that really transformed what my experience was going to be like at Vanderbilt, to just be like one student just giving that permission and other students being like, yeah, that would be helpful, and then you all responding well to that authenticity piece. Like, I don't know how these last few years would have gone if I would have still kept that pressure internally to be the certain kind of person for you all.
Yeah, wow. I really appreciate the fact that you tell that story, and like that you just mentioned that right now. I think that was the result of a little bit of bravery I had in that moment, but like really like seeing an amazing human being and not always being around, in my experience, probably 85% of the professors I had were just kind of either there or maybe even negatively impacted my life experience. And just seeing someone like, whoa, this is a dope, like this is an amazing teacher, this is an amazing human being, like, hey, we need more of you, like we need more of that, like keep doing that. So just,
that's awesome that you were able to be brave, because it was new in our professional relationship. Like, it was only a few weeks in, but to just be given that, and you said it so confidently too, of like, this is what would help me. I was like, oh God, I can deliver that. Like, that feels so much easier than what I'm trying to do here, because the voice in my head of what it says you all expect and that I should be doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, as much self-work as we do as therapists, like we still have, you know, those old messages that I think definitely can come in and creep along.
Oh man, yeah, just this part of being a human, I feel like, yeah, absolutely.
It's a challenge for sure. But you know what, even this is a challenge. I'm not used to also like me being the focus of attention. Like, I'm having to combat the idea of being like, well, what do you think about this, AJ? What are your opinions? And so even this itself and this side quest that I'm on with you feels like a really cool challenge that somehow is supposed to teach me something of like being in the hot seat.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. Sean said the same exact
really?
thing. He was like, I kept asking you like questions about you, AJ, and I'm like, that's cool too, but like, yeah, I think therapists are unique in that way, and it's like some of the most amazing people in the world, I feel like, that I've met this far are therapists, and their gift is hearing other people, but like, what do y'all got to say? Like, what do we, you know, what's out there? So
that's so funny that we're professional listeners, and so the part of like talking, you're like, okay, this is a little unfamiliar, but I can do this.
Right. I mean, it was I hope you'll get a kick out of this, but like when I was doing those street interviews in Williamsburg, I was so into like asking other people that a guy had asked me, okay, so what are you doing? Like, why are you asking me this question?
What is this for?
And I instantly went into like, oh shit, like I gotta like perform. And so like I reintroduced myself into I was like, he's like, so what are you guys doing? And I was like, hey, I'm doing, and I went into like a
You're like going to your performance role?
Yeah, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing, AJ? Like, I couldn't just,
that's so
it was like
funny.
So unusual as a therapist, you know, or, you know, and there, I don't want to get all the way into like the self-disclosure thing, but you know, there's moments where like it is important to kind of like, you know what, this will help this person.
Yes,
and
yes, sharing part of my story or part of this that resonates, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think those are those moments that like, it takes vulnerability from us too. And sometimes we're not great at that. We're good at, you know, the helping part, not necessarily being vulnerable part. But I try to remember that if we're asking that of students or of clients, like we got to show up in that way too.
Yeah, we got to try it. Yeah, and sometimes it's good to be like, this isn't for every therapist, but sometimes it's good to be like strong for a moment. Show people that like, you know what, I'm going to be brave in front of you, and hopefully that shows you that I care enough about this relationship. I'm not just here to sit, listen, okay, time's up, goodbye. I'm gonna take a chance on my end too. You know, I'm gonna take a risk over here to show you like this is something important for our work together.
And I think that takes confidence though too, that like, I don't know if that's going to be safe, like sharing a part of my story, but I feel like it could be transformative for you or helpful. And so I'm going to take that chance and just kind of trust the process.
Yeah. Okay.
How's your art going?
Oh, it's interesting, you know, it's funny you mentioned that moment where I was like, I'm gonna stop being perfect, and I put that blotch on there. That caused me to make a few other decisions that I wouldn't have made unless I made that mark. And now I'm kind of like, I like it less, but I'm proud of myself for changing it and being brave.
Going out of the box.
Yeah, so
working through your own discomfort as an artist.
Yeah, exactly that. And even we're gonna go a step beyond that. Okay. And this is where I kind of challenge my guests here. It is toddler time. It's toddler time. Release that perfect part of ourselves. To be a kid, it was going this way with a brush. Now let's put our fingers and our hands into it and see what comes of it next. However way you want to. But yeah, that's what.
I love it. I actually feel comfortable with that. It's kind of like being a therapist where you enter in, you're like, I'm gonna get in the mud with my client. Because I could just stay like on the boat and just be like, how's it going over there? Here's your lifeline. But like, I'm gonna get in the mud too, and like, let's share this uncertainty together.
We're gonna get in the mud. I love it.
Okay. So we're just gonna go, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Just making sure. Because I'm going for it.
Oh, go. We spoke a little earlier. You spoke a little earlier to battling perfectionism and talking about perfectionism. How can the average Joe or Josette combat perfectionism in their daily life?
Oh, great question. So the antidote to perfectionism is self-compassion, and that seems to be people's hardest time because there's so much of that inner critic in your head, and a lot of it is kind of programmed, from childhood and coaches and, maybe even like religion too. So I think first, just kind of, you kind of got to like pull out that version of you. Actually, it's funny that you're talking about this while we're painting with our hands and doing the child, like, remember like as a kid when like nobody could tell you anything and you were just like, I can be the president of the United States or I can fly, and you just had this like naivete of like, I can do whatever I want. So like that's in all of us deep down, but just like society and the world and sometimes our families and everything kind of like, really bury that under expectations. So I have found for myself and then the people that I interact with, like if we can just uncover that version of you that used to just be like, I can do anything. Like, and if I don't, like, okay, and I move on with my life. Yeah. That's really like an antidote for it. But first that also goes into examining a lot of like, what does enoughness mean to you? And so sometimes that means like, I got to remind myself that like, that tree outside's not asking like, am I beautiful enough? Like it's just a beautiful tree and it's just existing through time. And so I think that's where I always go back when I get stuck of like nature through time. How has it survived? Because if nature has survived this thing called life, well, we probably can too.
Yeah, and we are a part of nature. So that's even more impactful on a different level. I absolutely appreciate what you said about embodying that kid, like I can do anything. I'm gonna be president. I'm gonna be, and specifically what you said when afterwards, then it like almost doesn't matter. And I like that's the part that really gets me, and that's the part that's dope. Is like, yes, kids get upset when things don't go their way, but their ideas and the freedom of like thought and that I can be anything is so overpowering. It's just like, oh, you know what I'm gonna make a helicopter. And no, I'm gonna be an astronaut.
And then on to the next thing kind of thing.
Yeah, and like that thought, oh, that's so beautiful. That's such a combat to perfectionism. That's such a combat to being stiff and stuck and just thinking like, I'm going to do the hard thing, and if I don't, I'll just do the next hard thing.
Exactly. And then it's just like, okay, like that's show business, baby. Like we just are going to do the next thing. And so I know that that can be really scary for a lot of people, especially people who have kind of functioned in the world with a lot of like over-controlling tendencies. And so sometimes that can be scary to just be like, no, I'm just going to like do it. And if I look ridiculous, like, all right, then you just keep on going. The way that little kids will do like, look at this cartwheel, and you're like, that is not at all a cartwheel. And they're like, yeah, it is, because I said it was. And guess what? They're happier than we are. So why not go back to that? And then like the therapist in me also is like, don't our inner childs also deserve that? To like just have us get to be like, you know what? Like just try. Like why the hell not? And so a lot of what I found about enjoying my life is if I act like it's a video game of just like, I have these different tests, these different levels, these different side quests, and sometimes I'm gonna fail, but you know, so far I haven't run out of lives yet. So like, let's just keep doing this until I don't have any more lives and there's no restart.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, man, you know, not that I had like some expectation of you, but probably, but like I wouldn't have imagined
blowing this like perspective you've had.
What did you just say? No, but like, I love that you said that, and I wouldn't have expected you to say that of like picturing life like a video game and just being like, shoot, like I'm still going, I'm still, you know, I woke up this morning, let's just try this and try that again, and yeah, wow.
Well, and I also, I mean, I do think I've been pretty lucky that I've had supportive people in my corner. Well, if I'm uncertain, then I've got people to be like, no, like you're doing okay. Or even, you know, I don't think that you probably thought anything in that moment about sharing what you needed, and like years later that it still had an impact. So I think it's like those moments I just try not to take them for granted, that like people give me these gifts all the time, and so how can I give it back, but also maybe enjoy life a little bit too? Because I do think part of us being here, we're supposed to enjoy some of it, right? Like there is the suffering, but hopefully there's also the enjoying of it.
You gotta enjoy life. You gotta find what you enjoy, and there's truth to that, you know. Even working in substance use, there would be times, and you know, this obviously gets tricky, but there'd be people who simply weren't ready to move on from not using. Because they were enjoying themselves. And like, I'm not saying that there's a lot to be said about that, obviously.
Sure.
We could say a lot.
Yeah, what those degrees are of enjoyment to recklessness kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. But like, you know what? If they're enjoying it that much and that's something that they're engaging in, I don't think I'm gonna stop them just by saying something. And just there's something in that. It's like, what if we can do that in a healthy way? What if we can do that with the things that really like heal us and help others and move the world forward, to just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, and I think if you have some like compass or a sense of like meaning or purpose, that's gonna be kind of your guiding light. So in the enjoyment, I still have that whole like, but I want people to be safe around me. So that also helps temper that like, I'm not gonna while out in a place that like makes people feel unsafe or might get someone in trouble. So I think if everyone has some sort of compass of like, here's sort of the route that I need to go or where I eventually wanna end up, then yeah, maybe we can have fun, but also not burn it all to the ground, because, you know, that also can come with its own complications.
Oh yeah. We're not gonna get into that. We're gonna be positive.
But like the waves of my painting, that, you know, we've got those ups and the downs, that we're just all here trying and learning, right?
Trying and learning. I love that. Trying and learning. I'm sometimes trying more than learning. Sometimes, you know, learning by not trying. I don't know. I'm just speaking.
I'm finding that the longer I do what I do, I feel like, do I know things? Like, because I've been doing therapy now. When you were doing my bio, I was like, actually, I probably need to update. Like, it's been 15 years I've been doing therapy now. And so you would think I'd be like, okay, I know it all. But I'll still have students ask me things that I'm like, I've never been asked that question before. And I love that, like, after 15 years, I still don't know it all. And so I think that's where it gets humbling again, where you're like, I'm here and I'm learning, and there's always new things to learn, as much as I might feel confident in something.
And like, the appreciation I have for you, just to say, I've never been asked that before. I don't know, let's figure it out together. Like, gosh, that makes a young adult feel like an established adult is just us. You know, oh, she is like us. You are over here. Sometimes talking to professors or people who are in certain positions, they create such distance in conversation, and just your ability to say, I don't know, your ability to kind of like, again, get in the mud. Like, you know what, I don't know this either. Let's figure this out together. It's just so inspiring, and definitely helped motivate me. And I'll speak truth. I think I've told you this before. When the day I graduated, you are one of the main people who helped me get through to graduate. And I really mean that. And, you know, I don't know if I would have graduated if you weren't in the program. Like, I maybe would have, but I can't say for certain. And knowing that you came into the program and you made a difference and you're such a cool individual and just like, all right, I'm gonna get through this, you know, like
You
this.
can make it, because then
got
just
a little
think
help,
like how
you know?
sad for your clients and your future clients if you wouldn't have done it. You would have figured out something else to do, but like now that whole trajectory would have looked different too. And so I think that's one, it goes back again, like if I can just in a moment make someone maybe feel like, all right, I can stick around. Now look at what your clients are going to get to do. And I don't take credit for any of that, but that's like, yeah, this is why that's my guiding light, even on the long work days or days when I am humbled more than maybe my ego would like me to be humbled. That it's just like, okay, but then hearing stuff like that like now AJ like gets to see clients and that's what the world needs. Like, that's the way you do it all.
Changing the world one step at a time.
Plus also that connection piece, like when you kind of talk about where people can kind of separate, especially in their professional roles, like, I don't know, that just sounds like boring to me. Like connecting feels far more meaningful than just trying to show off to you, like how smart or accomplished I am.
And that usually never works, you know?
Right.
And when we feel people showing off how smart they are, there's something that goes, you're compensating for something, there's some insecurity there. Are you as smart as I think? But you know, there's definitely exceptions to that, but yeah.
Sure.
We're gonna wrap up here in the next few minutes, okay? I have one final question for you, okay? Take your time to answer.
Okay.
Feel it out. But what is your vision for a better future, and how can listeners help?
Okay. Better future. I think for a better future, if we can all just come in a little bit more curious than critical and not feeling so activated if someone has a different opinion or perspective. And I mean, not to go quoting people, but there's this book, well, I really align with like Stoicism. That has really helped me in my mental health and just this idea of kind of like separating from the ego. And there's this book called Ego is the Enemy that has really helped me, that every time I kind of get that activation and that like, man, that sucks. Like I tried so hard and I'm getting negative feedback or someone's not jiving with my efforts. Just being able to like challenge for everyone that like ego is the enemy. Like it's through connection, it's through discipline, it's through like doing the next right thing. Like that's what I think can just help improve the way that we all exist in the world. So try not to be so certain about everything, and yeah, don't go to the ego, because the ego I think can be very me, and very self, and that's where there's danger.
Yeah, it does get dangerous in there.
Right.
I've heard this online, and I've been trying to embody it lately. Is be more interested than interesting.
Yes.
You know, and it says. That speaks to everything you just said. You know, have curiosity, expect others to have more answers than you do versus vice versa.
Yeah, that it's like I want to listen more than I speak. And from there, I feel like I benefit, but then I also gain wisdom that then I can pass to the next person kind of thing. Because I do think like you want it to be mutually reciprocal. I'm not just sitting here like soaking up all your secrets and like, mwahaha. But I think it's like, yeah, but just like there's so much good wisdom out there if we just stop feeling like our egos have to lead the way. So, and I get it. Like, I don't think a bunch of us are going in there being like, I'm better than everyone. I think it's out of self-protection. That if I have that ego, that helps me not to feel judged or less than. So I get it, but maybe just challenging it that ego's the enemy to connection.
And ego is the enemy to connection. I love it.
Yeah.
Dr. Jessica Tyler.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Me.
It's been a blessing. It's been lovely. I'm so grateful to see you again, for us to connect in this way. I know people are going to get so much from this episode, hearing you speak, and just you being you and like putting paint on canvas. We got to hang out and just paint, right?
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought?
And I don't feel anxious about this right now. I'm like, okay, look at what came out of this.
Yeah, so let's turn our canvases inward.
Oh, look, yours is cool.
Wow.
I
like yours a lot. I like yours a lot. Okay, so talk to me about what happened here, you know.
Okay, so you had us use this fancy pencil and it came up with waves. So from there I said, okay, I can do a wave that feels within my scope. And so then as we were talking, I started just thinking about like the multi-layered experience of just being a human. And so that kind of guided my way of, instead of me focusing on it being like perfect of a landscape, how can I just keep like layering it on? And then as we were talking about things like hope, that's where then the yellow came in, where it was like, you know, kind of like when you're staring at the sky and you might see like a shining star and you're like, is that a planet? Is that a star? Like, what is that? And then you gave me the freedom to use my hands. So then that made it a lot easier to just kind of go more into how layered our experience can be. So I feel pretty good about it. It seems stormy, but it's actually very hopeful to me.
It feels hopeful. It feels, I love that the layer, or the yellow is on top of the layer of blackness. Like it definitely embodies that hope. And just like being able to see your hands and like you really dig into it. And that's sometimes what it takes, what we talked about earlier. That's what it takes to find hope. That's what it takes to get the sunlight out of the situation, is work sometimes. And man, I love the colors you used, and just, it's just so fun to see it turn inward. And like we had a whole conversation, and then at the end,
I can't believe I could multitask and do this. That was amazing.
We did it,
Yeah. What about you? How did you get all those colors? Like
I was just like, as you can see, they're all mixed, but like I just did the finger dot thing. So I've just been finger dotting the thing. I have the advantage of having done this several times. There's things that I've already done, so then I try not to do those things. Like I'm trying to mix it up.
Challenge yourself. So then what does this bring up for you during our talk?
Ooh, thank you that's a wonderful question. It brings up, I want to say hope. It is what you said, so it's kind of like, but it does for me. It brings up hope, and it brings up kind of like a subtle quietness for me.
Yeah.
There's like, I think it actually is a Monet painting where they're like sitting at like a park next to a river or a lake or something, and there's just such warm colors, and it feels like you're there.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's some realm, I'm looking at someone looking in the mirror in this, and that's what it looks like. And it's just it gives me a feeling that I can't explain, and I'm okay with that. But overall, the feeling I have currently is hope.
I love that we are leaving on hope. I like how it seems like it's like light is coming from the painting. I always think that's really interesting when it's like I can feel the light from it.
Wow.
Cool.
Dr. Tyler.
We did it.
We did it. Yay. Thank you so much. This has been...
Thanks for inviting me.
Such a pleasure. If you have anything left to say, cool. If not, we can just wrap up.
No, good luck out there. Everybody take care of themselves and each other. Hopefully that's pretty much what they got from our conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Yes. See you guys. Woo! We did it. Flew by. That is so cool how you could do that with all the colors though. I've not learned that technique in my many art classes.